All right, so I'm just going to make a new directory. Let's call it React browser fun. Oops, I want it there. Move React to. All right, so we have React browser fun. All right, cd React browser fun. All right, so it's a brand new React project, so we're going to create from scratch. We're just going to kind of learn how to use the browser and all the features that it offers. I was unhappy with the documentation though, so I don't know what to say about that. Okay, so first I'm going to create a React project. So I'm going to do npm install, or sorry, npx create React app, and we'll call this browser. All right, so let us do its thing. Again, the whole idea, again, if you guys understood Django routes, then this should hopefully be familiar. The syntax is the key difference, but same idea. We just want to give our users paths where they can navigate to. And depending on what path they go to, you want to show them an appropriate page. So it's not always the same. Let's let this do its thing. Did any of you guys attempt the Hangman challenge from Wednesday / today? See a no. Any guesses out there?
No, I didn't get to it.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys can attempt it at some points. So I really enjoy that challenge. Definitely should solidify your understanding of React, or let you know what you don't understand in React, at least. Okay, that's still going. Okay, so we have installed React. Let's just launch it. So I'm going to cd into my browser app, npm start, and that should give us our familiar window here eventually. All right, see my browser's up already. Yeah, so this is your default React app. Again, if you've not coded up any components, you should see this spinning thing, kind of hypnotizing. Key thing I want to point out here, and this was accidental, but notice I could go to any URL on my localhost 3000. Like I could go to /donuts/yummy. Now this route does not exist, but my app doesn't care. So right now, routes don't matter, as in your URL does not matter. So long as you're connecting to your localhost, this is the only component we show. So we're agnostic to whatever path they're trying to go to. We always just show the app component, and this is what the app component is, right? So the whole reason we want to introduce this router is so that we can actually control, like, hey, user wants to go to donut/yummy. Let's show them a different page than just the default app. So we actually have control based on where they navigate to show them an appropriate page. And obviously, you know, these are what our websites should look like, right? We want to have different landing pages. We don't want to just have one page that has all the content on it. So let's
question, Ankur. So basically what's happening is you're just switching out the components based on what the route is. Okay, so you're not like changing the entire page. It's just if you want to change, for instance, the body content, that's the only component you'd be changing.
Yes, essentially. Yes, when we say page, we're actually showing a different component. So we call it a page component, but it is, again, we're still on the same application. It's just a different component being shown to them. Yes. So as always, we dig into our projects, go to the source. So app is our always top level component. So we're always showing the app component no matter what. Now, if we want to do something conditionally, let's get rid of the header. You know, we could do something like, what do we do? Maybe a button. Again, I'm just going to kind of go on a tangent here, but const value set value, just get comfortable with using states, use state. All right, looks like VS Code did not import that for me. So I'll import use states from React. Again, hopefully we're getting comfortable with view state, this is just gonna be a random value. I'll initialize it to 0. So let's say when I click my button, we'll do something on click. And a click and click me. All right, so we're gonna have a handler for this. Handlers, const on click. We'll get to our router shortly. Just want to kind of go down this path for some reason. I don't know why. All right, so handle click is what we called it. All right, so when we click this button, we should call this function to do whatever we want to. Let's say we want to update our state values. So I'm going to do set value is going to be value +1. Just a side note, again, I know we're kind of going over a lot of topics. Do you guys remember why one way, second way? So one thing I want to point out, you can do something like this, private value. And these are just React topics, nothing related to the browser. So both of these lines, my one way and my second way, will do the same exact thing, as in they'll result in the same exact way. Do you guys remember, does anyone remember what this is doing versus what this is doing and why this would be slightly better in certain cases?
With the second one, it's in case there's an asynchronous something where it's just not updating as soon as you hit it. It could be whenever.
Yep.
So it makes sure.
Kind of got the general idea there. So either of these calls, set value, which is my set state function, these are asynchronous calls. So when we say asynchronous, that just means it's going to be done on the side at some point. So this is kind of out of our main execution. We schedule something with React and saying, hey, we want to update this value. React, can you do this for me? And React wants to do it because it wants to update manager states. So React's like, okay, cool. You scheduled a change, but I'm not going to do it right away. It had its own timetable, its own schedule. So kind of is correct. Like if we have set value +1 and we do this again, this is actually not going to do what we want it to. So let's say, value is 0 right now. We call set value +1, which is going to update this. It's going to update value to 1 eventually, right? So I guess we should put that on this line. So value starts at 0, right? And then we say, hey, we want to update value. So it's going to update to 1 eventually, in quotation marks, meaning hey, if we try to do this line again, this is going to say update. I guess we're going from 0 to 1. It's going to be 0 to 1 again, because value at this point in time is still going to be 0. This does not take effect immediately. And that's the whole idea of asynchronous calls. So because of that, if you need to do something like this, usually you could just do value +2 if you wanted to increment it by 2, right? But there might be certain circumstances where you need to call an updater multiple times. I can't come up with a great reason right now, but I've seen it done before. That's when you want to migrate to this version. So you can get away with this 90, 95% of the time, whatever percentage, high likelihood, it's going to be fine for your needs. I just want to point out, this will actually make it so if I had 2 of these chained, this pre-value will be the return value from here. So they're going to kind of chain as you would want it. So again, whatever is passed into here, this will be automatically done. React will pass in your previous value for the second one based on the return value from your previous call. So the value from here, whatever prev value +1 is, will be fed into here so that this will actually use the to be next value of your value. Make sense? All right, just want to get that out of the way, but I'm just going to do it the simpler way that works most of the time. It's just easier to understand. We're just incrementing our value by 1. Again, we don't want to update it directly. So just to reiterate, we cannot do +1 and then set value, right? Because this is updating the state directly. That is a no-no. You guys should be good on that front. So +1. All right, now I want to conditionally render something. So this is the idea of, again, we don't always have to show the same thing. So we do value mod 2 equals 0. Then we can do something like show them h1, welcome page, or we'll show h1, other page. Right? Do you guys get everyone clear on what this line of code should be doing? Based on the state value, we're going to check a true and false. If it's divisible by 2, we're going to show welcome page. If it's not, we're going to show the other page. And this is, again, just a very, very simplified example of what your router is doing for you. So if we hit save, right, notice we're on the welcome page. If I click me, other page, we're just going to toggle back and forth. Now, it just seems like, sure, we're just changing the text value here, right? But these can be components. So let me create a new folder and call it components. Components. And I'm going to call it pages just for fun. Pages. And then within that, we'll create a new file, call it homepage.js. And then maybe, not a folder, file. We'll call this other page. Yes. All right, so we're gonna create.
Ankur, just a quick question. You're able to use that value directly because you're only comparing it. You're not manipulating it, right?
Yeah, we're reading the value here. So
Gotcha.
You can access it directly to read it, but to update it, you need to use a set value function. Yep. But yeah, reading wise, yeah, we're not modifying it, so we can use it like this. This is just doing a comparison. It's not actually modifying it. All right, so we're creating 2 components. I'm going to do this really quickly. So React functional components, homepage, and then we might take in some props. This will be the same. React functional components. If you guys are wondering how am I doing this kind of quickly, I've created snippets. Snippets are kind of cool in VS Code, where I've stubbed out this as like a template, and I could kind of fill in whatever I want to from that template. So this is a bare bones functional component. Again, just returns what we want to render, and we need to export it. That's pretty much it. So now that we have this, let's just add our text in here. So we'll do h1. This is our, I called it homepage, so we'll call it homepage instead of welcome page. And this will be other page. And again, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please stop me. But all right, so we have 2 components now. We have homepage and other page. So if we go back to app, now we can import these. Import homepage, pages / homepage. Likewise, we want other page. And now instead of just rendering, simple H1 tags, we get render components. Again, components and elements are essentially the same uses here. So homepage and other page. All of you guys good with ternary operators? Again, they seem kind of foreign, but they're just in one single line if statement. So the question, we have a condition. The question mark case is if we have a true condition, we want to do this piece of logic. If we have a false condition, which is the colon case, we do the other case. Again, the spacing doesn't really matter. Again, this is JavaScript, white space doesn't matter. I usually like to break it up because this makes it easier to read. I just know like true and false, easier to pick out that way. You can put it all in one line, it's fine. But yeah, so now that we have this, nothing should have really changed aside from homepage saying homepage instead of welcome page, right? So this is the same idea. We're conditionally rendering something based on some external value, or not external value, but some value. So now if we go here, we have homepage, great, other page, homepage, right? So we're actually swapping components here. This isn't just, updating text on a page. We have an entirely new component being rendered here, which, yes, right now it's just text, but it could be anything. It could be an image, it could be a whole other application. It could be like the Hangman application on one page and, Mad Libs on another page. Make a fun site that way. All right, so this is, very simple example, but this is essentially what your router is doing for you. But instead of, having a value that we control, this value is coming from the URL that they're going to. right? So we don't have access to the URL right now. Like, again, we don't care where we're going. I could type in donuts yummy, green beans gross. I don't like green beans. You know, the path here does not matter. But notice anytime I actually navigate to something new, right, it actually resets my application. So anytime you go to a new URL right now, you're essentially just doing a refresh to your page. Same thing if I refresh right here. That's the same thing going to a new URL is doing. So refresh, we get reset. We don't manage states between application refreshes. If you did want to manage states, you could use local storage. There could be other options, but naturally, or by default, you don't retain any state values anytime you reload your application. All right, so let's get to why do we want, or how do we use the router and kind of what it offers for us. So to get that working, we're going to install our new friend. Why did I put that? Okay, so we do npm install react router DOM. Now, I'm comfortable with version 5, but since we're moving on to new versions, we should learn it. I'm a little scared, but we'll get through it together. So this will take not too long. All right, cool. It added React Router DOM. We could investigate. Oops, I did that incorrectly again. I'm gonna delete that. So I want to be in my browser app. I don't want to insert stuff outside of that. So this node modules need to go away too. Right, I want to cd into browser app, and then I want to do npm install React Router DOM. Okay, so now I should have my package.json. That should have everything in it. I've seen this mistake before. I've made it twice accidentally already. But if you do it in the wrong directory, you'll get multiple package.jsons. It could still work, but it likely won't because it won't know where to look for everything. But in this case, I get React Router DOM. Again, we are version 6. So that is the latest version they have to offer. All right, so let's get to adding our router into our application. We want to do it at the top level. So app.js is, again, the top level component that gets rendered when we launch our app. So here we're going to import a few things. Let's say router, import. I'm going to use the deconstruction. So this will basically pick out items that I want. I want the browser router, routes, route. I think those are the 3 I need from React Router DOM. If you didn't want to use deconstruction, you could still find the item. So you do import browser router, but then you actually got to find where it is. So I think I could do a slash, and then it's somewhere in here maybe. Nope. That would be like bootstrap, maybe not. So no modules. Let's try to find it here. A lot of files, a lot of files. Should be React DOM, no, router DOM. There it is. All right, I guess there's not many files in here. They just have it all in one file. I guess so. So they just have everything nested in one file. Never mind. Ignore that tangent. All right, so we can't just do that. All right, so we're importing browser router routes and routes. All right, so this is our router app. These are individual paths. The routes, I'm not quite sure what that's offering, but sure it does something for us. So here, to implement the router, we're going to put it within our div, and we do browser router, open and close that. Then within here, we want to nest a routes container. Again, I'm not quite sure what this is offering, but it's something that's required. And then inside, we're going to put individual routes. So let me get rid of my example here. And we'll still keep our button, actually, because I want my button to do something. All right, so let's get some routes going here. So again, some of this is reading documentation. So this is exact, kind of says match it exactly. I don't want any variations. And then we'll do path. Let's do /home as a path, or /home, yeah. And that's going to render a home page. Likewise, we want, oops, close that. All right, and then we want maybe an other. This will be the page. All right, so now this is giving us control similar to what our value was doing before, but instead of us just having some random value, we get the value essentially from the URL or the address that the user navigates to. So they go to /home, we want to show them the home page. If they go to /other, they should go to the other page. A good question that I have, and then maybe you have, is, well, what if they just go to / as in the base page? Well, there's no route specifying what to do there. I'm not actually sure what we're going to show. I assume it's just going to be a blank page because there's no route matching what we're looking for here. So let's actually see what happens. So I'm going to save this. We're going to keep our button around just for fun right now. But all right, so that's our router. Specify some routes. If they go to home, we should see a home page. Great. So refresh. Oops, server's down. npm start. Any questions about what we've added here? Again, this is just the syntax you got to follow. Browser router may handle some of the magic. Routes probably does some other magic. The only thing we really implement are the routes themselves, like each individual route component. Okay, so notice I went to my home. I didn't even go to my home page, but let's go to /localhost. Notice we have the click me button because the click me button is not part of the router, right? It's nested outside my router, so it doesn't matter which route I went to. I'm always going to show that button. But we didn't match home or we didn't match other, so we're not showing any of these pages. We're just showing nothing aside from this button. But if we actually go to /home, well, now we're at the home page, right? Because we're using a value and conditionally rendering something. Same thing with other. Now we're at the other page. Click me does not do anything right now. It's incrementing some value that we don't care about. But what if we want to, kind of navigate back and forth with that click me, just like we were doing before, right? When we had that click me initially, we just showed the home page and other page kind of back and forth. Well, now we need to, we're not doing it conditionally based on our value. We're doing it based on the path. So this is some built-in browser functionality we can kind of leverage. This is something we didn't go over in lecture just because it's something new to, sorry, we did go over in lecture, but for version 5. So for version 6, you need to use something called use navigate. So let's say router hooks. I'm going to do maybe const navigate. Nah, probably do a let. All right, we'll do const. If that doesn't work, we'll do let. All right, so I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to use another hook. So these are called hooks. I'm not sure why they're called hooks. I just call them functions. But use navigate. Now, question is, how do I just know this? Well, this is what I spent lunchtime doing. Like, I was trying to figure out how to migrate from version 5 to version 6. So use navigate is what you use in version 6. In version 5, it was actually const history. It was called use history. So you might see this, occasionally. This is version 5. For whatever reason, they changed it to use navigate. I don't know why. But since we're using version 6, we got to use the use navigate hook. Now, again, this isn't magically available to us. We actually need to import it. So we could do that with our import statement, use navigate. Right, so that's a function, but we're still importing it like anything else. So now, once we get access to this navigate object, essentially, we can call navigate. Let's see. All right, so I know what I want to do. This is going to be kind of confusing because we've not gone over it. But I need to use something called an effect. We're going to go over effects on Wednesday. But essentially what this effects let us do is react to some state change. Now I'll explain it so you guys will kind of get a heads up on what we're going to go over on Wednesday. But I'm going to do a use effects. Use effects. This takes in a function. So I need to, all right, use effect comes in from React. So make sure you import it if VS Code did not do it for you. We're using something called use effect. And I'll talk about why we're doing it based on my needs here. Use effect takes in a function as a parameter, and it takes in an array list as a second parameter. So I'm going to break this up into 2 items just to make this a little more clear. So we'll do const update page. It's going to be a fat arrow function. And this is going to navigate based on our value. If value is divisible by 2, we will, let's make it by 3 just to change it up, because otherwise it's just true and false. So if it's a multiple of 3, then we'll show the home page, I guess. So navigate to /home. Otherwise, navigate to /other. Right, so this navigate item that I've introduced later, so I should probably swap these. All right, so we have this navigate object and we're using it down here. So this navigate from the use navigate hook lets us navigate to a route, just calling navigate directly. So again, this was a little different in version 5. But for version 6, we use navigate and simply pass it the route we want to go to. So in this case, /home, right? Because that's one of our routes, or /other. Again, we need to match those names. I wish there was name routes, but all right, so update page, whenever that's called, is going to investigate the value of value. Probably should name that something else. Whatever the value of value is, if it's a multiple of 3, we're going to show the home page. Otherwise, we're going to show the other page. Let me stop here because I kind of introduced some new things. I'll talk about use effect in a second, but do you guys understand kind of what I'm trying to mock up here? So eventually, when I click this button that I still have here, I want that to control which route we're going to navigate to. And to handle navigation, I'm using, this is from the DOM router, this use navigate hook that lets us control where we want to navigate to. So we're actually going to like redirect to a certain location. All right, let's talk about this fancy use effect. This is kind of confusing, but it is what it is. So this takes in a function. In this case, I guess I should make this lowercase, update page. So I pass it a function. Additionally, I need to pass it an array here. All right, this is probably the most confusing part of this. This is what tells my use effect when to call this function. All right, so whenever I pass into this array, it's going to say, all right, I'm going to investigate this item. It could be a state value, it could be a prop value. Whenever this changes right here, it's going to call this function. All right, so let's maybe put a comment in. Use effects will search the array and monitor right here, monitor changes, and we'll call the function when a change is detected. All right, so again, we're going to get into this on Wednesday, but hopefully this is a good primer on it. So we could have multiple state values. So I could have, as many state values as I desire. I could have donuts as something. Set donuts, not donuts. I guess they have cronuts. That's another variation of donuts. So we could have, something, set something. You guys get the idea here. So for that array that I kind of introduced for use effect, you can have multiple dependencies here. So this is called a dependency array. So I could have value and something in here. So now when either one of these state values is updated, I will call update page based on what I've specified here. If donuts changes though, update page will not be called. That's what I'm specifying for whatever reason I want to do this. I'm saying whenever value in something changes, call this function. If donuts happens to change, which is a state value, but in that case, whatever donuts is doing for my application should not call this function for me. What questions do you guys have about use effects?
So basically use effect is if value and something change. It's not like value or.
It's or, sorry, it is or.
Or.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
one, yeah, one of these had to change and it'll trigger this.
Yeah, the function. Okay.
Yep, good question though. Yeah, it is an or. So only one of these have to be modified for this specifier. Now, the reason I need to introduce use effect is because when I call click me is going to update a state value. I can't simply do, I can't do this navigation here, similar to what we talked about earlier, right? This value is not going to be updated immediately. So I can't simply rely on the new value that I'm setting here because this is asynchronous, meaning when I get to this line, this is going to be the old value. It's not going to be what I expect it to be. So I can't do this right now. I only want to do this once value gets updated by React. And React has its own schedule. It'll do it when React will do it when it's good and ready. That might be like a second from now, it might be 2 hours from now. Likely not 2 hours. It's usually like, milliseconds, it updates it. But again, it's not immediate is the key thing. So that is the reason I needed to introduce use effect. I basically said, all right, whenever value updates, just give me, navigate to whatever value is telling me to navigate to. All right, so we still have our click me functionality. Let's give it a try. And I have an error. Use navigate may be only used in the context of router components. Got it.
So it has to exist within the route. Since you're using navigate outside of the router, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to create a new component or put these into my pages. So yeah, let's create a new component. Call it components. And then we'll create something just generic page components. Page components. This is called page. This is going to be outside of my pages. All right, so page.js is going to be a very simple component that's just going to have a button on it and all the other functionality we're trying to get here. So where am I going with this? So page. Sorry, I'm trying to mock this up correctly. So we want to use navigate here. Update page needs to be. Tom, do you have any suggestions here?
So what are you trying to do?
So I have update page here, which is outside of my router. I could create another component that's inside the router, maybe.
I would just say in the home page and the other page, do the navigate to the either or page. That's what I would do.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I'm gonna quickly try this, and this is work. I'll try it. All right. Let me just create a page.
yeah. And that page component just have a link to both pages.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So what this is telling us is this navigate functionality only can be used within something that's nested within a browser router. So I can't use it out here because this is in my app component, which is not nested under a browser router. So that is my issue here. Sorry for going all over the place, but page is going to be some, let's call this button, nav button. Okay, that's a good name. So we'll call this nav button. Nav button. And then we need to create that component. Simple enough. Functional components. React functional components. Call that nav button. And all nav button will do is what we're doing before. I'm going to grab this button, put it into nav button. Nav button. Okay, looks like I deleted what I just created. Components. Nav button.js. React functional components. Nav button, which will have that button. All right, so that button will be here. The handle click should also be here. So handle click. I'm gonna move all of this into that button. So my states are going there. The only thing my app has now is just the router. So I'm kind of nesting this under nav button because I need that nav button to be under a browser router so that I can use navigate. So let's dump all this good stuff in here. I'm going to need to get my imports also. So use effects, use states. Don't need logo. Back away. All right, nav button needs use effect and state. All right, so again, use effect, we'll go over more of that on Wednesday, but hopefully you guys understand the general principle. Use effect will react to a change that happens to one of our state values. So we can't do that right away because these are asynchronous, but whenever they update, we're going to call update page. Update page should call navigate, and we're going to navigate to a route, and that'll be handled by the router. So let's give this a try. Hopefully that clears our error. So again, the button will just increment value. And then based on value, we're going to navigate to home or other. If value is a multiple of 3, we'll navigate to home, else we'll go to other. So let's see if that clears our errors. Nav button not defined because I forgot to import it. We do that. So import nav button. Any questions while we're kind of interested in this? Again, key thing here, I need to have a nested component to have browser functionality within that component. Use navigate, not defined because I didn't import it. All right, so I'm using use navigate, but obviously we can't just pull out of thin air. We need to import use navigate from React Router down. All right, fingers crossed. I think that's the only thing. All right, there we go. So we have our home page. Now, again, every multiple of 3, it should go back to the home page. So the next 2 clicks should get me to the other page if I did this correctly. So go click me. Notice our URL changed to other, right? Because we actually, on the click, we navigated to other. If I click that again, we're still on other. If I go to click it one more time, notice we're taken back to the home page. Right? So again, this is similar to the example we started off with where we're just clicking a button and changing a components. Well, now that kind of the extra middleman is we're relying on routes. So this value determines where we go to based on the URL that we're currently navigating to. Okay, so that was, I think, all I had in mind in terms of introducing the router. Any questions from what we did? Any questions from lecture that maybe we covered that I maybe sped over or kind of just confused you guys with?
Ankur, can you show us how it would look with just regular links? Like just like a home page and another page and just a link on the page?
Yeah, great question. So we're using the navigate function here because we don't have links set up. This is something I did not go over in lecture, so I guess, kudos to you guys for coming into breakout session. This is where we want to use maybe the link. So import link. This is another item from React Router, so I guess I can just put it here. Link is a component that acts much like the A tag does for regular HTML pages. However, the A tag navigates to a completely new page that's going to reset your application. The link will still change your URL, but it won't change your page or won't refresh your page for you. So if I use link here, let's actually add a couple links here. So instead of button, we could add some links here. So let's say link, and then 2, instead of href, there's a 2 parameter and a link to, or I guess props, as you call it. And in this case, we want to go to home. And this could be homepage. And then likewise, we could do to the other page, so other. So now these will directly take us to it. So if we want to, keep clicking this button to get back to the homepage, instead of 3, maybe we'll do like 10. So now we have this link that should do the same thing, take us to a specific route. So if I refresh, oops, that doesn't look great. It's kind of congested there. So I'm going to add some break lines. BR. All right, let's see how that looks. Okay, cool. So we have the button still. We have the home page and other page. Let me go back to home. All right, so if I click this, again, every 10th click, I should go back to the home page. Yeah, so that works. But what if I need a quick link to the home page? So these should take me back to whatever route. So home page. Notice we go back to home directly, and then other page directly. Yeah. So again, link, pretty simple to use if you understand A tags. Instead of ahref, right? Our normal way would be ahref equals /home. All right. Instead of doing that, let's see, home page, A tag, and home page. I'm gonna call it tag. It's an element, or sorry, a component, but it's fine. All right, so let's have 2 links to home, one using the A tag, one using link tag. So let's see if those work. So we have home page. All right, so we're taking it to the home page. That works. The A tag works. Home page works. If I go to, let's say, other. All right, so if we're on the other. How does it keep navigating me back here? I go to the other page, won't let me. Other. Interesting. I wonder why. Why can't I get to the home page or the other page? So I'm typing in /other here. Oh, I bet I know why. Okay, so this is a little more about use effects that we will cover. So full story, use effect actually fires even before a change happens. So on the first render, when you initialize your component, this gets called the first time. So the first time I go here, like this component renders, it's actually doing this navigation for me. That's why I'm going to the home page, even though I type other, this is redirecting me. So I probably need some additional logic to prevent that. It's getting a little complicated, so I'm not going to get that deep into the intricacies of use effect, but just know that this is happening initially and on every change to one of these values. So the initial part is what's getting me here. So I can't seem to get to other, which whatever, it's maybe a function, maybe it's a bug. But yeah, now when I click, so I'm on the other page now, I go home page, I go to the home. If I click here again, home page, they both take me here, but one is doing a refresh. So let me show you from console logs. So inside update page, I do a console log the value of value. All right, so this value should always be going up, right? Every time we click that button, that should increment the value, and we want to print it out here. Okay, so let's get our property inspector going. All right, this is our console, initial value 0, because again, that function ran once on initialization. My current value is 0, and that was printed out because that update page got executed. Now, when I start clicking click me, notice I get my outputs, right? That's the value we're seeing right here, 19. I've clicked it 19 times. I get to 20. I should get to the home page, right? There we go, home page, because we're on 20. It's a multiple of 10. Again, I changed it to 10. I don't know if you guys saw that, but every 10 click, right? So if I go click on this homepage link, again, using that link tag, notice that I still have all my values here. If I keep clicking, I get to 29. I keep going. So my internal state values are retained because my application is still running, right? If I click this A tag though, it's going to take me to the home page, which is what I want, but it's actually going to refresh my application. So if I click that, notice that I lost all my internal values. So I'm back at 0. If I start clicking again, I got to start back at 0. So that's the whole reason we want to use the browser router, is so that we can maintain internal states within our application without having to refresh. Again, there are ways to deal with it. Like if you do need to refresh your page, you could store your values in local storage. You could cache it somewhere else. But again, we're not going to get into that because we could use the browser router and still have navigation. What questions do you guys have about setting up the browser router, why we use it, how we use it, anything else? So again, there's some level of reading documentation you're going to have to deal with. So there's use navigate. Again, just you can read up more on that, but that just gives you access to navigating. The other thing that we did in version 5, but we didn't do in version 6, is how do we get params? And that's what I was struggling with towards the end, towards lunchtime. So if you guys recall, if you can channel your pre-lunch memories, previously I wanted to do something like, so this is version 5. I can't even put comments. Version 5. In version 5, which I was comfortable with, you could do something like route, and then do that rendering as such. So I was doing route props, passing that in, or even before this, I guess, when I was doing routes exact path equals /donuts, elements equals color page. Sorry, I wasn't even using elements. I was using components, which is what I want. Components equals whatever component I want rendered when I go to this route. So it's not rendering the component right now. It's going to render it when this route is hit. All right, so it seems like version 6 removed this component. What this was doing for me was automatically passing router props to my component. And those router props have a bunch of information for me. It has stuff for history. It has stuff for the parameters that are in the URL. So this was the version 5 way, but it seems like they took away that functionality. So the version 6 way is you just render your elements or render your component using the elements props. But now if I actually want to investigate something from the URL, so in this case, we're not passing a value, but let's actually pass a value this time. So let's say I'm going to have, does it say a counter will be my variable?
Address.
What was that, Tom?
I was just like address ID, but yeah, counter makes
Yeah.
sense.
Let's put that on our other page. So our home page will be nice and pristine. Our other will have, address ID, I think was a suggestion, address ID. All right, so now we have a variable that can be part of our URL. So other page needs to go to something. Let's make sure we update correctly here. So nav button needs to go to other/value now, I think. Value, gonna have string interpolate here. So again, this is similar to our posts or a news story that we're doing. We have an ID. All right, so now we're going to go to some specific value. I think that should be fine. Okay, so let's make sure we didn't break anything first. So, okay, that's typical React freaking out. It's fine. It's fine. Things are fine. Refresh. All right, homepage. Click me. All right, we're still looking at the other page. Just increments, go back to the home page. Yep, this looks like it's working fine. So all we did was change the routes to now take in additional value. Now the question is, how do we extract that out of the URL? So to do that, we're going to introduce a new hook called const params, I think. So const use params. All right, so this previously in version 5 was, you could do something like props dot params, or it was match dot params.
Anchor, the params variable, that should be the variable name you are using for the URL. So it should be like address ID or something.
Wouldn't that be if I deconstruct it, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to avoid deconstructing, but yeah, let's go through both examples. So the previous way was you pass on route props. So that's what props would kind of have within it. And you have access to match that params and then the values. In this case, it would be address ID was what we called it. So previously, that's how you extract it. Again, they changed it. So we're just going to go with the flow there. So we need to use a use params hook, which is similar to use navigate, but we need to import it. So use params. And this should give us all the params that we kind of care about here. So params is going to be an object. And on that object, we should have access to, let's just do a console log right here. Console log params, what I call it, params dot address ID. Right, so there should be an entry for address ID within this object because the browser router should be handling that for us. So if I look at right here, so we're nested in a browser router, we're just rendering an element, but using the use params hook right here, since we're in the browser router, we should have access to whatever the URL has in it and get all the params from it. There's also something called search params, which is another hook you can use. In this case, params address ID. So let's make sure we're getting the correct address ID. So let's actually label this address ID. And then this down here was the value. I don't know if we still need this, but we will see it. So question for someone out there. Tanya, I'm gonna pick on you since you suggested this breakout room. Sorry, I'm not gonna pick on you, but it's a question for you. Based on my console logs here, when do you think I should see, let's say I'm going to other/20, right? Like I want to go to, I'm clicking this button and we get, oops, that's not good. I'll need to figure that out. If we're going to, that's for the home page, right? If I click this button, what do you think I should see in my output here? Let me clear my output. So I'm going to click this button. We're right now on our home page. Let me refresh here. We get value 0. When I click this button, what do you think I should see first? Do you think I should see my value first or my address ID first?
Okay, so this would be a guess. I would say you would see Let me see, the value ID first.
Yep, I would agree with you because we're printing out the value first, then we're
Mhm.
navigating, and then we're going to come back and show the address ID for that click. So address ID will be, that should match the value, but value is being printed out first. This address ID will be correct for this navigation that happens after we print out that value. So let's take a look at this. So we're getting address undefined. Can anyone guess why we're getting address undefined here, or address ID undefined? Keep in mind what page we're on.
A number hasn't been passed in yet.
Yeah, so we're on homepage. Homepage does not have an address ID as part of its props, right? If we look at app.js, home does not accepting an address ID. So we're trying to get, this is a nav button. So sorry, I have a few components going on. Nav buttons on both, it's on every page, right? Because we always render nav button. Conditionally, you render either the home page or other page. So the nav button is always looking for an address ID. But if we're on the home page, the home page does not have that in the URL. So that's why we're getting undefined for the home page, which is fine. I mean, we should probably be a little more smarter here, like check if this actually exists, but that's fine. If I click this now, we're still getting that, so that's not what I want.
Lowercase d and ID.
Thank you, Tom. Typos galore. So I'm actually going to fix this out here. I'm not sure which I prefer. I think I prefer lowercase d just because convention is uppercase for that word, but okay, thanks for catching that. Refresh here. All right, so we're undefined still because we're on the home page. Will this work now? No. Interesting. All right, so let's actually print out params, make sure we're getting something. Print log params. Maybe I need to do something extra here. So refresh. All right, it's empty. Still empty. So it looks like I'm not using params correctly. So time to go to reference here. So find use params. All right, there we go. Use params. All right, so we import it. That's checked off. We do use params. So they are deconstructing it. Maybe I could try it that way. I don't know if that should change anything, but worth a shot. So let's deconstruct it to address ID. That would take away params address ID. Params not defined here. Okay, so we should be up and running. Let's see if this works. Refresh. Nope, still undefined. So what to do here? The use params hook returns an object of key value pairs, dynamic params from the current URL that we are matched by route path. Child routes inherit all params, yada yada. Something's amiss. So again, we have our app, we have our routes, we have our path that has a colon, right? I didn't forget that colon, did I? Nope, I have that.
Are you? Is it being just console log the nav button?
It is, but shouldn't nav button have access to the URL?
I think as X. I think it has to be a child on the routes underneath the routes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't know that. That's just.
Appreciate the assist here. So yeah, let's go to our
Yeah,
pages
assist.
and this will
Yeah,
circumvent the undefined item here. So let's put this into our other page. Use params. We're in other pages. We need to import it. So import use params. I guess that kind of makes sense because again, the params only relevant to the page that cares about it. So use params from React Router down. All right, so now we're going to deconstruct it and print it out. So let's see if this works. Fingers crossed. Refresh. All right, click me. There we go. Now we're getting the address ID and the value ID. And this is only happening on other page. If we go to the home page, we don't get that undefined anymore because we're not trying to extract the address ID. So again, both ways that I had it, this way works too, where you get params as an object and just do params address ID. But yeah, this is how you extract values from the URL. I guess the key thing that I ran into is you must be in a route to have access to use params. You can use use history, I guess, outside of routes. Or sorry, use navigate outside of routes, but it looks like use params needs to be inside of route. So they mentioned that here. Yes, I'm sure they mentioned it somewhere. This doesn't make it clear that it has to be in there, but I guess whatever, we'll go with that. Cool. All right, I think that should take care of it. Cool, we're getting that. Links still work. We refresh. Cool. What questions you guys have about these hooks? Again, there's a lot of them. If you look right here, there's use outlet. No idea what that does. Use match. I'm actually curious because we had something called match before, so let's take a look at that. Returns match data about a route at a given path relative. Match path. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that is, but again, there's a bunch of hooks. We use navigate. We use Prams. Again, documentation is half the battle here, so you can look into some of these other ones if you happen to need it. Again, location. Not sure what location is different than navigation, but sure there is. This hook returns a location object can be useful, like perform some side effect one of the current location changes. So I guess reacting to a navigation change, I'm guessing. Again, they're using use effect here. We briefly introduced that today, but again, whenever a location changes, they want to react to it. So that's something we could do too if we wanted to, using the use location hook. But yeah, there's a few hooks out there that you might run into. So hopefully you guys are fine with green documentation. I was talking to Tom earlier, like I feel like the version 5 documentation seemed better to me. Maybe I'm just kind of biased, but I'm not fully happy with the version 6 documentation. It seems harder to find what I'm looking for versus version 5. React router DOM. I really like how they have the side view. So what was that? Nope, that's not what I want. Yes, I really like this because they have the details here with examples on the side. So nesting routing, I could find what I'm looking for. Great, the hooks are kind of organized. I don't know. I find this navigation easier, but I'm probably biased. So whatever. Okay, so that was our breakout session on the browser. Any remaining questions? Anything that I went over too quickly? Any additional questions? Any comments, concerns, anything?
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh. At the beginning, you were showing us that we could type anything into the URL. Now that we have the exact path set up, is that not true anymore?
Well, we can still
Gross
type in
error?
anything. So I'm just going to type in a bunch of garbage, but now there's no component that's going to be rendered. So again, sorry, that redirect is screwing me over. So let me comment this out for now. The button will no longer work. So I want to go to some garbage URL. So we go to slash, type in whatever. Semicolons might not be kosher. All right, let's go to whatever this is. So notice that nothing was rendered here. This is my nav button component. So that's all rendered, but now there's no component rendered by my browser. So our browser is going through its list. It's saying, hey, do you match this? Nope. Well, I'm not showing you this. Do you match this? Nope. So, we're somewhere else where we render only the nav button, but none of these get hit. I'm trying to wonder if there's like a default route we can create. Routes. What if we don't have a path and just do elements? Probably won't work, but hey, why not try it? Let's show.
And I don't know if they use the exact attribute anymore in the new version 6.
Interesting. All right, so here this. I feel like I ran into some issues.
So we won't get an error, and we just have to be mindful that it might not be rendering any components if we don't have it set up right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There should be, again, I would need to read documentation. I'm sure there's some way to capture like a fall through, like a 404 error. 404 error, like that's typical for web pages where you navigate to something that doesn't exist, right? If I go to, amazon.com/my made up URL, should see a 404 maybe, or maybe, yeah. So you get some page like this, right? So we probably have something on our web page. If you try to go to something that doesn't exist, SOCO, there's multiple dogs. Interesting.
Hey, Ankur, they've got it in the frequently asked questions. It's a route path star.
Awesome. Glad that you're reading documentation better than I am. So where is it in documentation?
On the left-hand side, go to FAQs, FAQS.
Ah, okay,
And then on the very right-hand side, how do I add a no match 404?
perfect. Seth, awesome, great job. Great find here. Yeah, so it looks like path with a star, it's just, looks like it's a wild card, so it's gonna just find anything. So we could do path equals, this will be our catch-all. So in this case, we could say, can I just render H1? This will work. Let's see if that works. So we should see bad path if we go to the page that exists. There we go. Cool. So you could render a component or just some HTML elements. So I go to something that doesn't exist, get bad path. If I go to other slash, is this case sensitive? I don't even know. That is not case sensitive. So I typed in caps. We still got the other page with a address ID of 3. That's cool. All right, fun stuff. Good find, Seth.
Well, thanks.
Thank you for your question. Was there any other questions out there? Okie dokes. Well, hope you guys have fun with new site 2. And yeah, we'll have stand down at, I guess, what's that?